Welcome back, everybody. It is Wins Above Fantasy, episode 193. Tonight we are talking reviewing buy lows and breakouts, getting the rear view mirror out, Steve, to go back to some of those early shows where we kind of always say this would be a good one to come back and look at near the end of the year. And we don't always do it, but I mean, we have our chalkboard, we have our shows, but I think this year we're taking the time to be a little more intentional about coming back to those and figuring out what we did learn, because those shows are always wrought with assumptions. It's 2 weeks into the season, it's small sample size. There's things like plate discipline, swing changes, pitch mix changes. So I know we got this show. We're going to do another one next week, but it's a fun topic, Steve, and I'm excited to get into it. We got a ton of names, but this is one that feels very relevant, not only to recap these guys, but also kind of close the feedback loop on what those early strategic directions are, so that next year we can kind of think to ourselves, are we overreacting? Is this a potential trap, or is this something that led to good results in the past? So excited to get into it, man. Sadly, I know you got bounced from the all important home league, so it was not our year, but you went out with a good fight as well. So yeah, we can turn the page here with this recap show and maybe learn some lessons for next year. How's it going, man?
Yeah, it's good. Bittersweet that my official, or what I consider my official fantasy season, came to an end.
Yeah.
There's still other leagues going on in the playoffs and a few others, but nothing quite as important as that. But when we were talking off air, I just lost to a team that was just on fire, and even though I had a good week, that probably would have won most times. That's the nature of head to head and running into a wild opponent. You just kind of tip your hat sometimes,
Yep.
and go out respectfully, which is how I feel. But yeah, as far as the show, like we've always done a good job. That's sort of the mission statement of this show, right? And our we've always wanted to just say, hey, when we recommend things or when we talk about things, to circle back and see what our process was, hold ourselves accountable, see what worked and didn't. And we've done, I think we've done so similar to this. We've done segments similar to this, but to actually look back and dissect specific episodes in this detail, I think is a new little twist to that, and interesting, right? And my take is, yeah, there's going to be things that are wrong here, but like, what was our process? Does that need to be changed at all?
Mm-hmm.
Was it like a good process and just a bad result, unlucky, or anything like that? Or was there something that we were caught up in hype and maybe force something, which I think that's the case too in a few of these situations, especially the first few names that we're going to talk about here. But excited to get into it and see how we did so far this year with our early season picks. Like that's an exciting time of year, and you want to get things right, because when those players hit, we talk about it, how they impact your team all year, but that could also be sort of a downfall, right? You may fall into traps. So it's a delicate balance, and
It is.
interested to see how we navigated that.
Well, we're starting off with the bad, but I think there's some balance as we go through this. And the first one, and a lot of these kind of finding value in hitter changes. I think this was an April 10th
Hmm.
episode, so very early in the season. And like you said, Steve, you're kind of trying to strike when the iron's hot. But the first one was Jordan Walker, who we were really excited about. Some of the back of the baseball card stuff looked good. I don't think the power was huge, but there was a little bit better launch angle at the time, and there was a lot of excitement about the side by side on his stance changing and looking much more athletic and aggressive, and kind of a little more bend in the knees and everything. And everything that we were excited about for Walker just kind of fell off a cliff very fast after that episode. And I think, the fly ball rates plummeted after May. Um, Walker now looks like a shell of the prospect we were all so hyped for when he came up and had, 16 homers and hit 276, 7 steals in that first year. He's followed it up with a 619 OPS last year, a 574 OPS this year. And yeah, until he can really put it together with some sustained either pull air or launch angle stuff, I think we're really in a pattern now with Walker, even at the age of 23, where the comp that comes to mind for me is Joe Adell, that like we would love if he broke through. We'd be cheering for it. Adele obviously did it. That's like the rose-colored glasses outlook. But I think with Adele, I had made up my mind that I'm gonna wait to see it happen before I kind of jump in head first. So yeah, talk to me about Jordan Walker here. I mean, no question it's a miss, but do you think the process was off? Do you think we got caught up in the hype? Like where are you at with this one?
I have a pretty strong take on this, and it's going to be something I'm going to try to remember going forward. I don't know if how much stock we being like you, me, and amateur fantasy baseball analysts putting into like stance changes. Um, I know there's those interesting new tools on Savant, and those are helpful as far as like where they're standing in the box, and you could see changes and adjustments made like that. But actual stance changes, like I feel like there's so much feel to that, and even the science part of it behind it is well beyond, we're not swing experts,
Mm-mm.
despite the fact that we could navigate a baseball savant page and a pitcherless page. And I'm not trying to downgrade or say that we don't we can't comment on things like that, but there's so much that goes into that is above our grasp, and
Totally.
what people are working on and what these professionals are working on with their stance and their quote unquote swing changes. Like,
It's a
sure, that's
confirmation
something that,
bias.
yeah,
It's a confirmation
there
bias,
is. And
really.
if there's something changed, and then oh hey, by the way, there was a swing change, this could have led to this happening, sure, that makes you buy into things. But to use it as a prerequisite or something as a premonition to say, hey, Jordan Walker changed his swing, like maybe this is happening. No, let's see if it actually worked. And then maybe if you were looking to buy into it, if there was that sort of swing change behind it, and then you can sort of confirm what's happening. But to use it as a predictive tool is something that I'm going to try to shy away from, which is what I think we were trying to do in that case, right? Like there wasn't much results yet for Jordan Walker that first week of the season. I don't think he started off like super hot or anything.
Yeah, I think when we were recording the show, he had like a 282 batting average.
Yeah, but like no power, right? Yeah.
Yeah, like one homer at the time. Yeah, so I think that it was wish casting a little bit, which is a great point. Yeah. The next one, this one was a much deeper like watch list one. It was more like a TGFBI one that, and I remember I brought up Brian Hayes because like Harold Reynolds, MLB was doing another kind of swing change where they were talking about going Brian Hayes going from like a one-handed swing follow through to a two-handed. There were reports of him saying how much better he felt, that it would, that he wasn't having pain in his back. And this was another one, I think, Steve, that you would probably categorize as like he wasn't setting the world on fire. It was like, a week and a half of him hitting 280 or something, and some of the underlying stuff looked okay. He was running on the base paths, so there was some interest there as just like, more or less like a corner infield type of guy. But even with the move to Cincinnati, we've seen marginal improvements on like his barrel rate from last year, but it's like going from 8th to 16th percentile. So I think this was another one that we didn't put a ton of stock in. It was just more like, is this a guy who could piece together a serviceable year of maybe flirting with like double-digit homers and steals? And it didn't turn out to be the case. So safe to say this one's kind of categorized in the last one. Would you agree?
Yeah. That being said, I'm a little bit more interested that he's in Cincinnati, and the results have been better. I know, small sample size. Um, in consideration here, it's just 117 at bats, but he does have a 282 average and 778 OPS, which is kind of like the high end of what we would dream on.
For sure.
And 3 homers and 2 steals. He did only have 2 homers in Pittsburgh in 100 games, 3 homers in the 37 games. So maybe, in a new situation, a new coaching staff, and a new hitter friendly ballpark, maybe there's some hope for him to be like a decent deep league play, because he wasn't even that with his 569
Yeah.
OPS in 100 games. Like, he wasn't even rosterable in like 15 team leagues.
Sure. Yeah, it's a good point. He could become kind of that JP Crawford mold if you're just looking for volume on a 50 man team or something. But yeah, by and large, wasn't one we were putting a ton of chips in. I think the next one, Brendan Rodgers, is similar in that we were just throwing out names that, like, you wouldn't be shocked if like a super post type sleeper. I think we were pretty excited that Rodgers, just as like in a hot take way, everyone had kind of moved on from him. And we ended up just seeing 40 games of Rodgers before he had that oblique strain. And we just thought new environment in Houston.
The thought back he had of the role, right? Like,
right.
It looked like Houston was giving him a full shot to be an everyday player.
Right. And back of the baseball card was brutal with I think like a 187 batting average, or I'm sorry, 191 batting average. But I gotta say, Steve, good old barrel rate has been promising in the past. It's something that it helps us. It proves right more often than it proves wrong. Sometimes it takes a couple seasons for something like that to manifest, but the gains, when you look at like past seasons where it was like a 10% barrel rate, 11%, it was as low as like 7 for a while. This year was a 14% barrel rate, and it even got better month over month. While his actual splits, the best month he posted was a 694 OPS for a handful of games in June. But yeah, Rodgers is maybe one that I'm not knocking the process. I think I might be watching it closer than your typical manager will next year. What do you think at age 29 for Rodgers?
Those gains were impressive, and the 14% barrel rate, the hard hit rate was the best of his career, but there was a pretty big trade off in strikeout rate, right? That came with a 36% strikeout rate. So I don't know if he, like, yes, I'll take those trade offs, but I still don't know if he is going to be like an everyday major league player next year, despite that. Maybe I don't know what's the situation in Houston. Like, that's got to be a 1-year deal, right?
Let's see.
I think they like claimed him off waivers, right, or something like that. From the Rockies.
I'm trying to pull it up.
Yeah,
here.
it's a 1-year, $2 million. I think he got like an invite to the spring training or something like that, or it was a super late signing.
Yeah, so free agent 26, definitely roll dependent.
So,
yeah,
that's interesting that happened, but I still don't know if that's the play that's going to help him unlock and become, what he was as a prospect and a 3rd overall pick in 2015. Like, he's almost 30 years old now. Like, I don't know if it's in the cards for him.
Yeah, totally fair. I mean, you're talking about a guy that's, literally going to be free. I didn't even know that he was on ADP, like top 500 this year even. But just an interesting one that the barrel rate's gone up. Like you said, he would have to kind of find the best of both worlds there. But moving to the positives, because we're kind of coming off of 3 misses. Granted, this was more of a trade target, but April 10th, our rundown on Kyle Schwarber was buy high. And this was one that I think we were seeing some results, but also matched with kind of a narrative piece on a swing change where Schwarber talked about holding his hands with the bat away from his chest to kind of be in a hit ready position. There was a great quote from him where he was talking about he feels like he's in that position before the pitcher's in his window. It gives him time and clarity to make the decision and basically feel like he's already positioned for a strong swing. And Schwarber has gone on to obviously post one of the best seasons of the year. So I think this one is, it's not like it wasn't a hot take that Kyle Schwarber was going to have a good year, but I think it's interesting going back to what we were talking about on just how high Schwarber goes. And it's nice to know that as early as April 10th, we were saying, look out for Schwarber this year. So I don't know if you're still a mega fade. I think first round is probably fair that you said he's not going to be a first rounder, but Schwarber, we were on this one. I wish I would have went out and made aggressive trade offers. What do you make of how we viewed Schwarber, and if this impacts your outlook at all for him going into the offseason?
No, I think it was a good call. I mean, this was his best strikeout rate since 2019, and it's been an amazing season. I think that there probably was some opportunity to buy just because he wasn't super hyped in the draft season. It was the typical third, fourth, fifth round sort of play for Schwarber. And he did have a slow June, right? He had 214, which is 6 homers, and then went off to hit 12 homers in both July and August. So there are ebbs and flows to Schwarber's production. So there's always buying opportunities, but I think that the process was right. And this was sort of one that there was a hot start, then there was a swing change that had some more tangible feel to it rather than just this stance change or things like that, right? That he was talking about this hitting position that guys like Judge and always talk about being in that ready position and like the no or the yes no sort of attack mode that the teacher man preaches on Twitter and gets in fights with everyone about. So that's similar in that vein. So makes sense, and I think this is more of the as nuanced as that is, and as hindsight and no duh this sounds, but like that's sort of the difference between being right and wrong on these between the first three and Schwarber here, right? It's you sort of need to look for results and then back it up, I guess, a little bit rather than hope for changes even that early in the season, right?
Yeah. I think that's
fair.
But
I mean, there's a difference. Like if a guy's okay, hey, this guy has a 20% power rate, is smoking the ball, looks great, and just not getting any production. Sure, there's that way to go about it too, and there's a swing change, but the results should follow. But that's with the underlying data that we could observe and see. So it's harder to sort of just go on
swing change alone.
Change alone, and
well, I think that's a good. Honestly, I think that's a
good
segue to Maikel Garcia, our next one, because he's kind of exactly the scenario you're saying. Like, so to recap, Jordan Walker, the stance had changed. There was a little bit of like average, but we've seen that before. Yeah. We had never, we hadn't seen huge barrel rates or anything like that. Then Schwarber was doing it on the back of the baseball card and underlying. And then Maikel Garcia was kind of in between, where it was 306 batting average. He had a couple homers at the time. So an 898 OPS, impressive, but 2 homers. What we were excited about at the time is that the barrel rate had gone from 3.7% up, or percent, all the way up to 10%. And so that's where we were starting to speculate, like, can he take a step forward on pop as well? And I think it was, were we talking about his XBA last year? Yeah, it was a lot better than the 231. He had a 260 expected batting average in 2024. And then Maikel Garcia, goes out and has 16 homers and counting, a 292 average and an 822 OPS. So Garcia put in a great year. I think this was another one that falls into that bucket of kind of confirming a prediction of an upward trajectory, because there was a stance change, or I guess you could say like a swing change, where he added a toe tap to be more balanced. Talked about how he wasn't like crashing forward. He was kind of staying back on the ball a little bit, and obviously put in, a high watermark on homers. So yeah, kind of an interesting mix of the two, but I think process was good here as well. I think we're kind of learning our lesson on this topic, right?
Yeah, like find the data to believe in, look for potential narratives to back that up, and that's where you could find a sweet spot. Like I think Garcia is sort of one of the better calls that we probably had all season. Just because he was sort of a fade with the hype last year not coming through. Schwarber, how much credit do you deserve for saying, yeah, Kyle Schwarber's going to have a good year?
Yeah.
Garcia, that is one that I'm proud of, that we were on early, and sort of said, yes, you can believe in this, right? Like, even if we expect, I'm sure what we said is, yeah, there might be some regression in the barrel rate, and there was, but he still had a good year with the 6.7% barrel rate because of everything else that he does, right? The 22 steals that he chips in, the fact that he has a good, hits for a good average, 16 homers, was basically like, a pretty good 5-category contributor all around. This is what you were hoping for with the hype from Maikel Garcia last year, and he sort of fell flat on his face, made that adjustment, and paired it together with the good hard hit rate that we saw, the low strikeout rate, and he's even ticked up on the walks, which you would think would lead to more steals after he had 37 last year, still only 22, so maybe a little bit more disappointing on that end. But someone that I'm glad we sort of stuck with, even though I know we were a fan of him in 2024 and he disappointed other than in the steals category. I'm glad we stuck with it, and this is sort of, I think, the best example of where our process went right.
Yep. Yeah. I think spot on. I think it kind of, we're seeing all sides of it there between some of those names. So, and Garcia, just reminder, ADP was just past pick 200. So you look at the season he's had, and that's great value. So following that process, like we talked about, as long as you're seeing underlying stuff, it's a bonus if the back of the baseball card looks good, and then you take the swing change much more seriously and act accordingly, because there can be big gains. Okay, we got more names from that exact show, and a couple hits, and maybe a miss, but we're gonna get to that right after our first ad break. We'll be right back. Okay, so Nick Castellanos was one, Steve, we were pretty excited about. There was some plate discipline changes. Overall, we thought that with those plate skills, with the Phillies lineup, I'm just going back to kind of those early game logs. Yeah, it looks like he had, what was it, 1, 2, 3. So he was at like 3 homers at the time of the show and hitting like 273. But we were really waiting for a breakout because he had just struck out like 4 times. And then, of course, like the night of the show, he had 5 strikeouts that night.
I remember that. Yeah.
And it's been kind of a meh season overall for Castellanos. 253 average, 16 homers. So yeah, not sure on this one. I think we were excited, but had a pretty brutal like summer stretch here. The ADP is going to drop. He's getting older. Not sure how much to put into this one, other than the fact that I think generally speaking, there's nothing wrong with looking at plate discipline metrics that early in the season, right?
No, I don't think so. And it was super interesting just because the reason why we've been fading the Castellanos so hard over the last few years is because of how much he chased and swung and cognizant that ages poorly, and Castellanos being an aging hitter, it made sense that we had some concern, right? And that looked like it was going away, but throughout the rest of the year, it did not.
Came
In
back.
fact, his O swing is the worst of his career. He did make a bit more contact, so that sort of, I guess, salvaged and led to him having a palatable 253 batting average after hitting 254 last year, but the power declined. I know that first season in Philly was a disaster, right? And then he sort of bounced back, and it's like, oh, like there's maybe there's still more in the tank, but there's still some warning signs there, and it's just slowly been a decline since, right? It's gone from 788 OPS 742 to 702 this year. You could have expected mid 20s pop. Now you're probably hoping for high teens. He's got 16 now. As he'll be 34 next year, it's just I'm not going to buy a small sample plate discipline change for Nick Castellanos next year, just because that happened the first few weeks of April.
No, it feels like he's kind of going the path of like an Arenado, where it's just, it's been a good run. I think any, production you get from him is going to be just kind of as a glue piece. I think the ADP is going to drop substantially, but let's move to a brighter note here. Steve, I think this might be the one right there with Maikel Garcia, because Cody Bellinger at the time when we recorded the show had a 206 average with one homer at that point. But we talked about the open stance, or I'm sorry, the stance change open to more neutral and being more aggressive on the first pitch, less chasing, which I know we liked. Again, that early in the season, you're kind of looking for sticky metrics and the ones that have pitches as the denominator as opposed to batted balls in play. The contact was down and the pull percent was down. But we were just talking about how there was kind of a notable tweak, and that it was worth considering it if Belly was going to be a bounce back here. And, I don't know how hard we hit it. Like, we brought him up and talked about it. So maybe that's the difference, because there wasn't much to point to. But this is one that turns around 28 homers, 11 steals, 275 average, like terrific season. One that I was probably overthinking with the, just the lefty pop in that ballpark was kind of a no-brainer. And I think he's put in a really, really nice season here. So thoughts on Bellinger, one that we were right to include on this show.
Yeah, the pull air percentage being the highest since 2019, when he was. Did he win the MVP that year in 2019? Yeah. So since his 47 homer season, pair that with the plate discipline gains. Like, who would have thought like Cody Bellinger is like one of the best guys in terms of like not striking out after some of his stints, especially towards the end of his Dodger career there. At 12.9%. That's pretty wild. I would have never thought that was the shape of Bellinger's career. So yeah, but a nice bounce back power wise after just the 18 homers last year, and there were some indicators under the hood that led us to believe that was coming, despite the poor surface stats there for Bellinger. So this is a good process, I think, as well. We were focusing on some of the underlying numbers, in swinging on swinging more in zone, chasing less, pulling the ball more, and pair that with that good ballpark in New York. That was reason to believe in him this year, and I'm glad we did so, despite the numbers not looking great through the first few weeks. And that noise around New York first year, like this is who they traded for to replace Soto, right? It's easy to get caught up in that. So sticking with it, I mean, just another great fantasy season for him. 28 homers, 80 runs, 89 RBIs, chipping in 11 steals, the 503 slug. other than his MVP seasons, the best since that 2023 season where he was, really good in Chicago. So, great year, and I think one of our better calls from earlier in the season.
Yep. Yeah, and if you go back to that April 10th moment, Spencer Torkelson was probably one of the 2 or 3 names, right? Kyle Manzardo was buzzing, but Torque was a huge one, even from like opening day.
Maybe we'll make sure to talk about him next week. I don't know if he was on one of these rundowns.
Yeah, but he was definitely one that.
Yeah,
We talked about him quite a bit. But yeah, Torkelson. This one is interesting because I think at that time, there was so much hype about like, is this the mega breakout? And when we recorded the show, he was hitting 311. I think he had 3 or 4 homers at the time. And then he went on to just, I think right after the show, he had 3 homers in the next 4 games. But with Torkelson, I think there was stuff that we were pointing to that we were concerned about. That the chase rate was up, but that said, he was being more selective in terms of overall, or less aggressive on overall swings. The barrel rate was up, the pull fly ball was up. So I think we were buying the pop, but had concerns. Obviously, it would have been an insane thing for Torkelson to hit 300 all year. But when you fast forward, I know he's been cold in recent weeks. But overall, it's kind of, if you would have asked us at that time, what do we think Torkelson's going to do? I think us saying flirt with 30 homers and hit around 240 is not that far off. I mean, maybe we were hopeful that with him swinging less, the average would have been a little bit higher, like around like a 250. But I think this was probably a fair process, and we're seeing what we can expect from Torkelson a little bit. What do you think?
I think that's kind of spot on. Like he's 234, 329, 457. Yeah, the homers are great. 28 homers. Runs and RBIs are good, which is, that's a product of hitting 29 bombs, being a good offense and having a good year. I mean, 115 WRC plus. Yeah. Torkelson's had a good year, but I think we were kind of spot on in that analysis and, fading the batting average a bit and not necessarily being all the way in on him being like a true stud first baseman, but more of like, I don't know, like, is he gonna have a career like similar to like Christian Walker maybe?
Yeah, I love that comp. I love that comp.
He's still just 25, right? So and maybe there is some more batting average upside as he's slowly increased or improved his strikeout rate, right? And
but that's in line.
Hitter,
that's in line with the Walker comp. I think like Walker probably had that 1 or 2 years in the 250s. Like
like there'll probably be a year where Torkelson's a top 5 to 7 first baseman. I mean, he's probably close to that this year, but maybe not quite. I'll look at the player rater as you riff here, but
yeah, Christian Walker's high mark, I would say, was 2023, where he hit 258 with 33 homers and 103 RBIs, and that feels, and then his highest home run total ever was 36. That kind of feels like what we kind of expect for Torkelson. So I like that.
Torkelson is 17th among first base eligible guys on the fan.
Oh wow,
$8.6. They good, but I mean they also have like Salvi and Ben Rice there.
Okay,
so those guys are catchers, right? Even like Devers, who has third base eligibility. Bellinger is the second first baseman who maybe you'd play him in the outfield, things like that. So yeah, I still think there's a bit more upside for Torkelson. It was encouraging, and I think that maybe there'll be a peak season where he does flirt with like 260, 270 and 35 bombs or something like that.
Do you think he's like pick 100 to 115, 120 range, or is
maybe maybe a little bit of back end? Like I think he'll be a great, oh no, I don't have first baseman, let me grab Torkelson real quick.
Okay,
sort of process.
Yeah. In terms of the stuff under the hood, like a 80th percentile barrel rate, 12.7, 24.8% K rate and
Yeah, not
11%
bad. Not
walk rate.
bad.
So yeah, I mean, there's stuff to be excited about for Torkelson. I know it's a little up and down. I think that's just the nature of kind of the archetype that he is.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely been a really good step forward, especially in that offense for Torque. So yeah, that's a good one. Moving to the other side of the ball here, next show we did was finding value in pitcher changes. So we kept kind of the same theme, and this was a tough one, Steve, to lead off with. After like 4 starts, Chris Bassitt had a sub-1 ERA, a sub-1 WHIP, more strikeouts than innings. And we broke it down, and I got to give credit to you because I was over here saying like, this dude is lights out. His split finger is dialed in. He's throwing it more, and then he tailed off the use of the split finger throughout the season. So in like April, it was 10% of his arsenal. It went all the way down to 3% by the end of the year. And yeah, now he's back to pretty much what you would expect for Chris Bassitt. And I remember at the time of that show, I was like, how good is Bassitt? Like, can he sustain this? And you're like, I don't think so. Like, I think this is pretty much Chris Bassitt. And what do you know? Finally, ERA is like a 3.97. Like a 1.3 ERA is just kind of a Toby or a Holly, depending on the start. So, a respectable year for Bassitt, but I think he definitely fooled us all with that opening 4 starts where he just looked otherworldly with, what was it, like 2-3 earned runs through 4 starts. But yeah, what do you make of this one? Just don't buy in if we have this much of a book out on a 35, 36-year-old pitcher.
This is the most Chris Bassitt season Chris Bassitt has ever Chris Bassitted. Yeah, like a 23% strikeout rate, 7% walk rate, a little under a strikeout per 9.
It's Bassitt, man.
Yeah, like this is what he does. It's a totally fine 4 or 5 starter. 3.97 ERA, 1.32 WHIP. Like, it is trending a bit. Like he's given up too many hits, right? Like he was really like his peak, like that run from 2019, 2019 to like 2023, his first year in Toronto. Like he was under 1.2. Like he his really good year in Oakland, he had a 1.06 WHIP. So he was like a strong contributor there. Now it's like, okay, that doesn't really even help you, right? Like a league average, like Nick Pollock always talks about this, right? Like a league average WHIP is like what, 1.25, right? So like for you to be good in WHIP, you need to have guys that are well under that.
Yeah.
Right. So and he doesn't walk that many guys. It's below league average at 7%. So he's just giving up a lot of hits. That's not a trend that you like to see, especially as Chris Bassitt will turn 37 in 6 months here in March or so. So yeah, I think Chris Bassitt is who we thought he was. To quote the late Dennis Green.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's just. I mean, I was trying to go to like month over month swing and miss numbers, and like there's not even that much change. It's just crazy that those early starts, like he struck out 10 Atlanta Braves in 5 innings, and we were like, whoa, what is happening? I mean, I think probably the biggest drop off, it looks like, unless let me just take a quick peek at velocity just to see if anything dropped. No, it didn't. So I think it's just Bassitt was Bassitt, and we hear it all the time that the split finger is kind of a field pitch, and sometimes it's working, sometimes it's not. It's why Kevin Gossman is such a roller coaster, and you go through this, but that's the primary pitch. I think it was just really working for Bassitt early in the season and then stopped. So enough said on Bassitt. We know who he is. Tyler Mahle was the next pitcher we talked about. This one we were kind of tough to solidify our opinion on, Steve, because the whiff rates had gone up. He had reintroduced a cutter, which at that point in the year we had heard all through the offseason about Nick Pollock, speaking of, talking about how it's the year of the cutter. So it got our attention with some good results, but the velocity was still like at, I think, 91, 92. It wasn't really that impressive. But by and large, we said we're interested in Mahle. And we kind of didn't get to see the full shakeout because of that shoulder injury. Only made it 77 innings, but a 2.34 ERA, a 1.13 WHIP. I don't know, man. Mahle's going to be. First of all, I don't know. Is he getting like surgery or anything?
I don't know
one
what
question.
the most recent update is on him.
But not a big like strikeout guy. It's just
No.
results known. Like I think at age 30. It's kind of a fade. I don't think that he's going to be a name like surging up the
He's
board or
coming
anything.
back this weekend.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So we'll see how a couple starts go. But yeah, the strikeout rate was down from where the whiffs were like early on in the season. But yeah, not sure. Just wanted to kind of call out that was like a mid-grade one. I don't know if there's anything you want to add on there, but just looking for results under the hood early on swing and miss stuff, and it looked better. There was like a right after that show, there was 9 strikeouts in 6 innings. But then really it took him till his final start of June. Or no, he didn't even come close. So 6 strikeouts was his high after that. So we're not getting swing and miss from Mahle.
Yeah, I think maybe a little bit more towards the Bassitt side. Like, this is who this guy was, and I don't know. Maybe the low velo was a bit of a sign that maybe we should have paid more attention to. But I know Mahle isn't like a guy that lights up the radar gun when he's healthy anyway. So who knows how much of an indicator that could have been for injury. But like I think that's why Nick sort of leans on the Vargas rule as much as he does. Like, these guys are major league pitchers; they're going to go on these runs, but
Yeah.
the shoe sort of falls off, or they become the guys that you thought they were more times than not.
Yeah, like X
Unless
percent of the
there's like,
starts are bad, X are
yeah,
great, and then a majority are just
yeah,
exactly what you should expect from
yeah,
them. Yeah.
exactly. And I think
And
Mahle and Bassitt fall into those categories.
yeah, so I think there's another name we'll get to, our last name of the show, that's a great example of the flip side when you're really looking at stuff and like what a breakout could look like, and that's not what Bassitt and Mahle just like have in them. That's not their archetype. So we'll talk about a few more pitchers. We're going to take our second ad break, and we'll be right back after this. All right, so Steve, this one was, not necessarily a hot take by any stretch, because everyone was super fired up about Bryan Woo coming into the season, and then after 2-3 starts, we just tracked that the velocity was up, the slider use was up, the swing and miss was up, so it was kind of everything that we were hoping for and looking for. I think it was kind of a buy high opportunity, but yeah, what we've seen from Bryan Woo has been excellent. The only real question had been around durability coming into this season, and I think even in spring training, I could be wrong about this, but I thought there were 1 or 2 moments where people were like actually concerned about Woo getting enough reps, and like, what are we looking for? Like 130, 140 innings. I remember Nick saying that kind of idea that if you get 120 innings, your next step up is substantial. Like, you've thrown enough innings. And this year we're at 175 and counting. It's been, probably his best overall contribution he's had in his career, over a strikeout per inning, 302 ERA, 0.95 whip. So I think just all systems go for Woo. Maybe if there's a lesson learned, it is around that durability thing, because I think we were worried about DeGrom as well. That's one that, he's given you way more volume than you were expecting or even hoping for. So maybe some of those health question marks, if you like what you're seeing, under the hood, go buy high, because this was like 2 weeks in, we saw what was going to be a great year, and he's been a phenomenal, probably, I don't know where he is in the list, but he feels like he's an SP1.
Yeah, I mean, there was so much concern with Woo with that, right? Like they were seemingly like an elbow scare, like every few weeks last year, and right. It, who would have thought that the guy that like didn't go less than 6 innings until like a most recent start in the end of August was Bryan Woo, right? He had to see like every single one of his starts was 6 innings up until like the last two, which is insane.
Right.
I mean, he's got to be among the leaders in innings pitched, right?
Yeah,
Just
I'm looking up like player rater and everything, but
yeah,
Woo is
he's
7th,
seventh in innings pitched. That's insane, right? Like, how would
and
you have predicted that?
he's the SP9, and his ADP was 138.
Yeah,
So
I
I'm
mean,
sure it
I guess
climbed
he
up by
did
then.
have 121 innings last year, so like you could. I think if you were high on him, you could talk yourself into like 160, 170. But I mean, he's going to get close to 200, assuming he makes like the next 3 or 4 starts here, maybe even beyond that, right? Because he basically is a lock to go 6 innings every time. So yeah, I think that just goes to show how hard it is to
Predict
project
health.
innings
Yeah.
and Wu had to have some of the worst health grades of any of the pitchers out there, and he's 7th in innings pitched this year. It's super super hard to do. Buy the talent, believe in the talent. That's what you need to go off of. For sure, be educated and make the right assumptions and downgrade guys 1 or 2 rounds because of injury history is just you know bet on talent for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, guys going ahead of him, that you were kind of hoping for stability, is like Zach Gallen. Um, let's see, George Kirby was going 15, 20 picks ahead of him. I mean, it's lessons learned. And of course, hindsight 2020, Tanner Bybee going 40 picks in front of him. Like, I think the idea that
And those are
ADP is a
guys that you're probably
number.
telling us, oh, I need more innings. So maybe I could pass on the upside of Woo, right? Like,
Right. But I think that's where you really, like, the lesson learned is you draft the stuff, man. Like,
yeah,
you got to get the stud and hope that the innings follow, because
yeah,
you can't get a guarantee on health on the other side. And in addition to that, some of the production just can waver if you're not like out and out with a strong foundation like we liked so much about Woo. So yeah, that was a great one. A not great one, and I'll fall on the grenade here, although we were pretty much saying like end of the show watch list guy, was Andre Pallante. Early on, he had a higher whiff rate on the slider, which I think was the same thing that we were talking about for Mahle. So I think maybe that's where, just because it's ticking up doesn't necessarily mean
yeah.
that it's a result. But I don't know, unless they've reinvented it or it's a straight up new pitch. Pallante, we were even wrapping up the take saying, just keep an eye on it. He could be a streamer. He's got the high ground ball rate, but the slider regressed, and Pallante just ended up being unrosterable. I mean, you probably wouldn't even touch him on a stream. But the last one that I think is a great kind of summary or answer to the Chris Bassitt, Tyler Mahle, is Edward Cabrera, who not only has had elite stuff for years, and we've all been burned multiple times. I was in early this season. I dropped him at one point and just like pulled my hair out as another manager picked him up and he went off. But one thing we were noting is the approach changes were drastic. And this was like, a headliner from Lance Brozdowski, that like his his pitch mix went from 51% fastball changeup to like 60% slider sinker. Like it was a overhaul on his stuff. And other than the unfortunate elbow strain that is gonna complicate everything for Edward Cabrera, we saw him just completely take off and turn into a stud for months at a time. I mean, to the tune of what is, I guess, his best month, maybe July, where he had a 2.43 ERA and a 0.94 WHIP. But yeah, just it felt like he finally did what we've been hoping for a long time, and there was so much that changed that you pair that with the stuff and the 97 mile per hour velocity, all that, very, very much the writing was on the wall. And these are the types of guys that are perfect to take shots on, right?
A 7.7% walk rate for Ed Cabrera. Wow. I would not believe that if that wasn't the number, showing on my page right now. Yeah, and those pitch mix changes essentially led to him being able to command and throw strikes on a consistent basis, right? Like that was the issue. He has all the stuff in the world, but he basically just could not throw strikes and would just walk the world. And how many 8 strikeouts, 5 walk outings did Edward Cabrera have over the last few years? And I think he's kind of in a similar situation to Woo now, right? Like he's at 128 innings. Like it looks like he's finally putting it all together. Just obviously this is all dependent on like if he's gonna end up getting surgery or not, right? But this is someone that if he's healthy going into the next year, I'm going to believe in, because that's the data and the stuff is telling me that is real. And I'll take my chances on him improving on that 128 innings, because Woo is an example. These guys could stay healthy. Obviously, there's a lot of news that needs to come out regarding what his status is, and this all could be a moot point with him potentially needing surgery. But if not, like everything was super encouraging with Cabrera, and like it's just a bet on stuff, and like eventually being able to get the right coaches and right process and right pitch mix change to unlock that repertoire. Like that's kind of why like basically everyone in the industry I respect, and all these smart guys like keep on pounding the table and buying into all these high stuff guys like that seemingly look like they'll never be able to throw a strike, but once they unlock something, like the whole thing clicks, and that's how breakouts happen. And that's what I think happened here with Ed Cabrera. Assuming he's healthy, it'll be someone I'm very, very interested in next year.
Yeah, well said. I mean, I think there's going to be names like Jack Leiter or Max Meyer, and ones that feel like they're just a roller coaster of floor and ceiling, but it's worth the gamble. Another thing I wanted to go back and check, because I remember Cabrera I couldn't remember if he started in the minors or if he started on the IL, but it looks like he was activated from the 15-day IL April 11th.
Yeah.
So even when you go to like the walk rates, like you cited, Steve, that first month, the walk rate was up at like 12-13%, and then it came
more
down.
Of the same, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so I think there's something there as well, to just when some of these guys come up, whether it's they get promoted or they are returning from injury, like didn't have as much of a ramp up in spring, all that you got to give him a little bit of grace, because it wasn't until mid-May that he really turned it on. Like there were those 2 uncharacteristic starts, 2 or 3 starts where he had like 2 strikeouts, and then like boom, 7 Ks in 5 innings, 10 Ks in 5 2/3. He cracked double-digit strikeouts like 4 times by the end of the season. So I think just trusting the ceiling, or at least gambling on the ceiling more often than not, because if you miss on 2 or 3 of these guys but you get it right once, As long as you get a little health luck, it could be a season changer. So yeah, I just thought Cabrera is a great one to hold up next to Bassitt and Mahle, because in the summer months you were, reaping a lot more benefits from him than the former. So yeah, I guess overall on these final closing thoughts, I mean, I think it's a great list. That first section talking through kind of stance change and how that can factor in, but shouldn't be like predictive. And then, I think Bellinger, Torkelson, Castellanos, like some of those were uh, maybe trusting what we felt like we knew about the player versus overreacting. And then the pitchers, that kind of goes right back to where we often are, that like ceiling is worth chasing, right?
I think so, and especially on the pitcher side, like, a guy you pick up these guys, like, they pitch every 5 days, right? Like, you could sort of, you bet on these guys with upside, you can churn and burn them, stream them, right? That's why it's important to leave the last few roster spots on your team, to, at least in daily move leagues, um, open, and even weekly leagues too, right? Maybe you have more of a window to get looks at guys, right? And Cabrera is one that, like, hey, you added in May, and like next thing you know, he's on your team and contributing and essentially giving ace-like numbers for those few months. Sure, it came to an end early and started a little bit late, even with the slow start once he was healthy in the beginning of the year, right? But that's sort of the process that I think makes discovering pitchers a little bit easier, right? Because you are doing that churning and burning, um, and giving yourself that opportunity to find guys, right? With hitters, it's a little bit more, okay, hey, yeah, I need one bat for one day or something like that, and you're sort of, um, not necessarily streaming as often as you do with pitchers, right?
Yeah. Spot
So
on.
that's sort of another way that I think to look at it. But yeah, overall, I think it was a pretty good process, and definitely some lesson learned to apply for next year, and get better at this.
Absolutely. Well, thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you for those who are tuning in the live stream as well. Kelly, appreciate the comments, and welcome to the WAF world. We hope you come back there. But yeah, we'll be back next week. I think last week of September we might be out with an outage, but we'll let you guys know on programming stuff. But we'll do another recap show next week on some more topics we hit on earlier, and focus on lessons learned. So looking forward to it. And as always, guys, thanks for talking baseball with us.
Thanks, guys. Later.